134, starting off with the Scotiabank CFTC report covering last week. We saw some increases in euro buying and euro sellers receded a little bit. There was more or less on the back of the basis that the Fed minutes last week will be somewhat dovish and the pricing of taper will be pushed out further back in the month. Now positioning made sense, so we had longs adding, shorts a little bit receding, and then left us with over 8 billion short USD. So that made sense. What didn't make sense was the price action we saw in Euro USD, which ended up tanking last week about 130 pips and then closed about 90 pips in the minus. I'm still expecting we will see a little leg higher. If I recall, last week we discussed there were dynamics between the short-term yields in the United States and in Germany. What happened though, so this is the yield spread between those two. What happened though, we're still on the bottom of the range, but the yield spread actually went in favor of the US, and that also dragged down Euro USD. So beginning of next week, keep an eye on that. If we start seeing a reaction from these lows, there would be a green light to start buying Euro USD. On the contrary, let me bring up the weekly. We are still caught up in this huge box here, and I don't see any reason for breaking out yet. However, if we do break down significantly next week on the back of comments coming out in the Jacksonhole meeting, then obviously that would change everything on Euro USD. Long term, I still believe we see Euro USD lower regardless, and this will break. I just don't think the timing is now. Mind you, if that starts breaking down, then Euro USD will definitely follow too. So I'm going to put Euro USD over here on the daily. You can see how closely they're currently correlated, as everything driven right now from a macro perspective is get manifested in yields, and Euro USD is taking a lead from that. And there's a couple of other news we have next week which will be quite interesting. So having a look at the Forex calendar, we have the week starting with some manufacturing numbers from Euro. Expectations is they still stay a little bit more elevated, although they have peaked already. That could give Euro a landing hand to try to push back against the bearish bets. And then following on towards Thursday and Friday, we have the Jacksonhole symposium kicking off, and I believe Fed Chair Powell will be speaking on Friday, which will be a key mover in terms of what will happen in the following next 2 weeks. So whatever happens between Thursday and Friday, it will set the tone to trade the first 2 weeks in September. So I'd be more interested to try to decipher what happens next week and use that information as a leverage to trade the start of next month. There's another thing I like to look at, which is Euro AUD right now. Euro AUD is a risk on risk off play. Obviously risk has been falling off substantially, so the whole reflation trend has been unwinding. Euro AUD found a strong bid last week. That could continue if AUD hasn't got the power to kind of push back, so keep an eye on that, as there is definitely a lot of movement either way. I'll be taking my cues from the incoming data. Also, depending how long the lockdowns last in Australia, that will change the dynamic tremendously and how Euro AUD will be trading going ahead. That's all I wanted to cover. It's a little bit more wait and see mode. Maybe we get a trade out of Euro USD on the long side if the yields start picking up as well. So that's something I will be looking and staying sharply in focus about that. Thank you. That's all I wanted to cover. Have a